Hello and welcome to the North Carolina Museum of History and the 26th Annual American Indian Heritage Celebration. The presentation will begin in just a moment, but we want to begin with a few notes. Remember to ask questions in the chat and we'll do our best to respond to them and share them with our presenter or panel. We have many additional resources about American Indians in North Carolina on our website. We thank the following sponsors of the North Carolina Museum of History Foundation for helping to make today's event possible. And now let's begin.
Pleasure to introduce to you Freeman Owle, member of the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Nation. He is a wood carver, stone carver, storyteller, and educator. Mr. Owle frequently presents the Cherokee culture and language. And I would like, on a personal note, to say that Mr. Owle, he's been a mentor and a friend of mine for many years. He helped me get interested in my own culture. So, my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Freeman Owle. Tanaka in the Lumbee language, Shio, Oshigwazu.
I'd like to welcome all of you here today. My name is Freeman Owle. As he said, I am a member of the Eastern Band, and so Dagwado A Ugugu. My name is Owl, and that's the Cherokee language, which has been here for many thousands of years. People have been speaking that even before the Spaniards came, and we've had several different dialects of this language over the years, and they still exist today. And sometimes people debate back and forth a little bit about which one of those dialects is correct, but I think we've pretty well gotten them over the fact that all of them are correct. It depends on where you came from, and the people in the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma speak a little bit differently than we do. In fact, they will say wado for thank you out there, and we say shkin over here in the Eastern Band of Cherokee people in North Carolina. So things are a little different, but I've been learning Cherokee since I was about 15 years of age, because the federal government was not happy with us speaking our own language, and they felt like it was their responsibility to kill it. And so I would like to teach you a little Cherokee today, and one of those things that we say when we meet someone is Shio, Oshigwazu, and they would probably answer something like Oshigwa, Anihina. And so that is answering the question, I'm doing good, how about you? And so you look here up on the board and you will see Salagi. That is the way the Cherokees pronounce their name, Salagi instead of Cherokee, and you write it like in syllabary down here at the bottom. This is the system that Sequoia invented, and you see GWY, and that is actually a character that stands for Sa, La, and Gi. And on the bottom of that, you'll see my name in Cherokee. In fact, when the Trail of Tears happened in 1838, I have records where my great-great-grandfather signed his name, just like this, on the roster to be taken to the West. And so that's something I prize, because he escaped and came back home. He outsmarted the soldiers and just came back to the place he loved, and we're still there today. So that is Ugugu, which means owl in Cherokee. There's a little problem if you want to learn Cherokee and to be able to read it phonetically. You have to understand that the vowel system is not the same as it would appear in the English language. We have mixed it around a little bit, and if you look up here with the A, that A says ah, which normally it says 3 sounds, but the one we choose for the languages leave it with ah. And then we go over to the E, and the E makes the long A sound. And so you come down to your ah, and A-lo-we-he, A-lo-we-he means to be quiet in Cherokee, so that starts with that A. And the ah-ni is under the ah, ah-ni. So if you want to learn to read Cherokee, pay close attention. So get up there with the I, and you think, what in the world that sound makes? It makes the E sound. Like iya is pumpkin in Cherokee. And so iya is the way it's said. And I will be saying things a couple of times for you. And if you would like to repeat them to yourself, that would probably be a good way to learn the Cherokee. And I think a little later you can go back and pick up this program again and again and listen to it over and over again. And so this is going to be your record of the Cherokee words that you'll be learning today. So feel free and find someone who's also interested in the Cherokee language that you're learning and talk to them. Talk back and forth. If you don't use this language, you'll never get it. And if you don't use it after you've gotten it, you will lose it. And so watch this very carefully. We're down to the O. That one's easy for you. That O remains O. It's one of the very few that stays the same. The U does not say U, but it says oo. And here's one that the V usually doesn't say anything in the English language, but v. And right here it says because there's a lot of in the Cherokee language. The only word in English that I can think of that uses that sound is like hunt. You know, it'll be deer season pretty soon, so you can remember that by the in the word hunt. So you get down below the E, you got Ia, you go over to the O, and you have Osta. That's one Cherokee word you need to learn is Osta. That means good in Cherokee, Osta. So we go over to the U sound. And my name, Goo, starts with that oo sound. So the owl, word for owl is Goo, and that's the barn owl. It's also the spiritual type owl for the Salagin. And the month of December is like Ushki. And that I, remember, makes the E sound, so you need to remember that. And so down here at the bottom, we have the Salagi and the Ugugu. Aya is like myself. We say Aya, Agiyoshiha, Burger King. That means basically that I am hungry and I like Burger King, please. Not advertising Burger King, but that's the way we talk. And so we're down here to Adiha, Hani. And Adiha is a Cherokee word that means I have, and Hani means right here. And go down to Shio. That's a short term for just saying hello. So say it to yourself, Shio. Oshigwazu. And we have three ways of saying that is Oshigwazu, and that zoo at the end of it makes it into a question. And this word right here means basically good. Good, are you? Shio, hello. Good, are you? Shio, Oshigwazu. Next one, you can change that to Shio, Tohigwo Sko. That Sko also makes it into a question. And there's one more that makes it a question is Dask. Yol Dashk, Hayol Dashk, Shio, Hayol Dashk. Are you doing beautifully or wonderfully? So that's one of the words that you, when someone's having a funeral, that you don't go up and ask them to say, Shio, Hayol Dashk. Are you wonderful? That would be a good thing to do. Someone was mourning a death or something. So that is the way you can answer that. And Oshigwo means good, and this is the way we answer Osta Oshigwo. Now, yes, I'm good, or Inihina means and you. So Inihina, how are you doing? And they will answer usually Oshigwa or Uyonst or one of those things, good or not so good. So we have a lot of words that we're covering. And by the way, I've been learning the Cherokee language, like I told you a while ago, since I was about 15. I'm still learning it today. And thanks to Miss Laura Penix at the high school and her staff there at the elementary school, that they've done a lot of work and continue to work with the Cherokee people and the children on the language, the Cherokee language. And it's really good to listen to the elders who speak it fluently and to learn more and more every day. So I'll probably be going to school until the day I die trying to learn the language. Cherokee is one of the most complicated languages that I have ever worked with. And so just bear with me. And we went over aya a while ago. That means mine or I. Ada, adiha means making a noise. We could look out and say, egwa yona, adiha. There's a big bear making a noise, and that'd probably be about time for you to leave and change positions. So this word is very descriptive. In fact, if I go into the words like my grandmother and my mother and my father, and so on, we have to show the difference if they are there with us or if they're away somewhere, and the language changes. So I could go over to the V sounds, the sounds. That's my mother when she's not here. She's away somewhere. It'd be my mother, and she is here at the time. Go down to Ugidoda, my father, away. Ugidohi, my brother, who is away. So you put Agi with all those words. Agitsi, she's here. Agidoda, my father's here. Agidohi, my brother is here. And if we're talking about grandmothers, we're talking about Agilishi. And one of these is on the mother's side and the other is on the father's side. The paternal side of the family is not that important because the Cherokee people were matriarchal. And so when we're talking about Aginishi, she is my grandmother on my mother's side. We're talking about real respect right there because she is giving birth to the daughters and the female side of the family. And so those daughters are the most important ones. And the guys get married, they move to another family, and they're under the control of another woman in another village, usually. If they ever get in trouble, then they are sent back home very quickly to their mother because the women in the Cherokee Nation would not take much flack off anybody. If their husband got out of line, they'd say, okay, go home to your mom. You're finished here. And so we go down to the E, the vowel A we covered is aya. That's what it sounds like. We go to the E, and that is going to make an A sound. A la shin. That's Alice in Cherokee. A la shin. A la wodihi. A la wodihi. That's Yellow Hill. You got another A there. A squaw. Me too. Say Agiyoshiha. The person next to you might say a squaw. Me too. I'm hungry. Me too. Agiyoshiha. Elawehi. You hear that a lot in the Cherokee classrooms. Elawehi. And that very simply means be quiet. I had a couple of people the other day that we were working with, and there was they were talking, not rudely, they were just talking when one of the elders was getting ready to present. And so the elder looked at me and shook her head. They don't have these. There are a lot of unspoken things in the Cherokee language too. Like you point with your eyes or your nose or your lips, and I saw her pointing to them. She did like that. And so, and she looked at me, and I knew I need to tell them to be quiet in a polite way because she wants to talk. So I said, Elawehi, Ashkaya, Nole Ageyu, Salagi. I said basically, Cherokee woman, Cherokee man, be quiet. And they didn't stop. And so the elder looked over at a little kid who was sitting there learning the Cherokee language too and said, would you tell him what that means? And he took his little finger and he looked at them and put it up to his lips, and they got quiet immediately. So out of respect, a lot of times you have these elders up there and you ask them a question, and this social workers going out in the community have a real problem with this. They want to chop things off just like this. And with the Cherokee elders, you have to give them time to answer. So you ask a question and you wait patiently, and they may be just looking up at the mountains. When they're ready to answer, then they will answer that question. So she finally started and did her presentation. And so we'll go down to the I sound. That I makes an E sound. It's very confusing. We had to borrow those. E-ya. E-ya is a pumpkin. And it's soon going to be time for pumpkin pie, so E-ya. And E-ga. E-ya and E-ga sound a whole lot alike, but E-ga is noon, middle of the day. E-ya-ni-e. Of them alive. And you say, Zoe kana E-ya-ni-e. There are 3 live turkeys. So, igada, of them. Tali igada, 2 of them would be what you would be saying. And you go over to the O, and it really does make it sound. Remember, the O says O. So, o ni, later. Dede dagahoyu, o ni. I will see you later. O la, and you have to make sure you say the difference between those, o ni and o na, because o na means soap. So we'll go down to the word, we'll go back to the A sound. Ama is like water. Ama, which there's a little dot at the end of these 2. That means salt. If you say that word fast, it means water. If you say the same word with slowing the end of that word, it means salt. So that's a very important thing to know. You may get salt instead of water if you're thirsty, if you don't watch. Unadi. Unadi means milk. Unadi. Unadi. Down in Robbinsville, they say it a little different than the unadi. They may have an accent on the end of the word that's a little bit different, or the unudi. The word in the middle may change a little bit, and still means milk, but it changes. Ugama. Somebody said ogana, ugama, and that would be groundhog gravy. I don't think I'd like that much, but a lot of folks there do eat groundhog gravy. So ugama is gravy. Ugama. Usti kita, something that is little. In the Cherokee boundary, we call the little kids, we say usti. That means little. Shortening a little bit there. Ustiona, baby bear, little bear. Uno deni. And then we go over to V, the sound. Ginsi, that's what I was talking to you about a while ago. So remember that those sounds are very often used in the Cherokee language. Another one is aquaduli ha. Canady, aquaduli ha. And the word for Canady is candy. You know, candy came along much, much later. So did coffee and computers, and we didn't have those words in the old days. So Canady, aquaduli ha. I want candy. Maybe a Baby Ruth bar or something. So I want candy. Aquaduli ha. I want. When you go down to you want, saduli ha. Do you want? Uduli ha. You want. Saduli ha. You want. He, she, it wants. Agi uduli ha. Very confusing, right? So aquaduli ha, when you want something for yourself, you say, ama aquaduli ha. I want water. Going back to that word we already learned. Candy aquaduli ha. I want candy. And saduli ha. You say, saduli ha, ama. Do you want water? And kids in school walking up and down the hallways in the morning, I will greet them. And in fact, I get a little boy off the bus every morning, and I introduce him to the staff as we go in. And he's only 5 years old, and that's a very good time to learn to speak the Cherokee language. So I will say, tell that one, Shio, Osigwazu. And the little 5-year-old says, yo, Osigwazu. And it'd be much better if you didn't have the mask on, but he has to wear it. So they listen carefully. And so, he doesn't speak much English either. So I'm teaching them 2 languages at the same time. And if you want to teach somebody to speak another language when they're about 5 is the best time in the world to do it. So you got to make sure that that type of thing is done. So we'll go down, and when we get to the point we need to slow down a little bit, it's about that time. So I tell you what, I encourage you to search the web and look for maybe even the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. Look for Cherokee language courses and classes, or search the Museum of the Cherokee Indian in Cherokee, North Carolina, and see if you can find classes there you can join. There's things on the internet that are crazy and they don't seem to have anything to do with Cherokee, but everybody in the world wants to teach it. So just be careful what you're learning. I have people come to me and they say something I have no earthly idea what they're talking about. So we're going to stop at that and answer some questions. So, Ski, Dana Dagaho you, and Data Dagaho you. Thank you.
Wanted to mention, Mr. Freeman, I work with a lot of Eastern Band children as well. My family and I live in the mountains,
Very good.
and they have Mrs. Walkenstick, one of my coworkers, showed me an app called CO,
Yes.
W-O, Y-O, and has a lot of great words. And
So go on the computer and SHIYO. Look up Shio, and I use that one too. It's great. And they're building it, so it's not complete yet, but use it. And it's got all these things I've been teaching you on it already. Okay.
Is my wife on?
Turn them off. We'll get Mr. Harvest turned back on here, and then we will continue on.
Okay. I see power.
Is that better? Sorry, technical difficulties.
Can we talk for a second?
Hello. All right. Mr. Freeman, who created this Cherokee syllabary, and why is the creation of the Cherokee syllabary significant?
Sequoia created the Cherokee syllabary, and it's significant in the fact that we are the only Native American tribe in the whole United States who has a written language. And it has brought our people forward many, many times, even before the Trail of Tears. We had the syllabary, and we were printing a newspaper called Phoenix in Georgia at the capital of the Cherokee back before the removal in 1838. So it has preserved a lot of our history. Very important.
How does the Cherokee's written language differ from English and other Western languages? And what is the difference between the Cherokee syllabary and an alphabet?
The alphabet makes the sound of only one letter at a time, but the syllabary has a group of letters together. So like TLA, TLA, CHA, CLA, and that's the major difference. We have syllables in the syllabary and only single sounds in an alphabet.
I got you.
So it's never the Cherokee alphabet.
How did the Cherokee language become endangered? What role did government policies play in eroding knowledge of the Cherokee language?
That is sort of a sad answer, because the United States of America decided, and it was their policy, to kill the Indian and save the child. So they killed anything in them or about them that was Native American, and this would save the child and be able to make them like the dominant white society.
And I know there's a lot of news about the boarding schools these days, and I know a lot of Cherokee families, a lot of Cherokee, older folks now were sent to the boarding schools.
Exactly. My mother was in the boarding school, and I was placed in the same school buildings that my mother was beaten, and they would beat them when they spoke the Cherokee language severely, and then wash their mouth out with lye soap. And these were policies of the United States government, and it was sad. And so I stayed and I walked those halls that those boarding school students walked, and it's almost like at times I could feel they were still there.
Wow. How have the Cherokee revitalized their language? What specific efforts have the Cherokee made to teach the Cherokee language to their members?
You know, they would take the kids away from their homes in those old government boarding school days when they were 5 years of age, and they would beat them, dress them in a uniform. And you can go on the computer and look up Carlisle Indian School, and you can see the pictures before and the pictures after. And they're in their native dress, and then all of a sudden they're in suits, and they thought they'd made progress. But now we're taking those kids away from their parents when they're 5 years old and send them to New Katua Academy, and the bus driver speaks Cherokee, the cooks and all the teachers speak Cherokee. And so with love, we're teaching the language back. And so it's a very important thing.
I work with a few students in New Katua, and they have a sign up that says no English past here.
That's right, exactly. One of them, Gilliam Jackson, was telling me one day, Mr. Owle said, I want to tell you something. And said, back in our day, remember when they'd whip us and beat us if we spoke Cherokee? I said, yeah, I do. And we'd go hide and we'd speak Cherokee under the slide. He said, well, I went out the other day at New Katua, and there were two little girls under the slide, and I sneaked up on them to see what they were doing. And he said, I listened, and they were speaking English under the slide. So it turned around 360 degrees since that time.
That's good. What role?
Yes, you
Are we done? Okay. All right. What role, if any, does storytelling and music play in preserving the Cherokee language?
You know, the Cherokee people were dancing all the time, and they had those drums, and they were playing the flutes, and it's a beautiful thing, a relaxing thing, and I think it's a part of the culture. Like the green corn dance, they drummed and they danced in all the festivals and all of that stuff, and I think it's very important that we continue with the music. If you're going to be a culture or a society of any kind, you have to have that language, you have to have the cultural music, and all of that goes together as making one beautiful people.
Why is it important for the Cherokee people to know their language?
You know, if you lose the language, you've lost a great deal of that people and their existence. So we need to hold on to that because our language is dying all across the earth right now. Even the Welsh language is struggling. And we have to hold on to it because that's a part of us.
If you were to name maybe one thing that you would hope people would take from your presentation, what would that be?
I would hope that you would take the fact with you today that we as parents, we as educators, we as politicians need to tell our children the truth so they can go forth into this world and do better, because they need to know what mistakes we made in the past so they will not make those mistakes as when they become rulers of this world. Ski and data dog a whole you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.